Patricia pointed straight at the front gate. "Take your child and get out of my son's house." The backyard went silent. Even the laughter from the barbecue stopped. 40 people stared at me. Neighbors, relatives, Daniel's co-workers. My husband stood only a few feet away. He didn't move. He didn't say a word. Patricia folded her arms. Her lips curled into a smug smile. "I've tolerated you long enough. Daniel worked for everything you have. The least you could do is show his family some respect." Someone behind me laughed. Another voice whispered, "About time somebody said it." I looked at Daniel. I waited. Just one sentence. Just one. "Mom, that's enough. Claire belongs here. Stop lying." Anything. Instead, he lowered his eyes. That silence hurt more than every insult Patricia had thrown at me over the last 5 years. I reached for Noah's little hand. He looked up at me with wide, frightened eyes. "Mommy, did we do something bad?" My heart shattered. I forced a smile. "No, sweetheart." I picked him up, grabbed my purse, and walked toward my Porsche parked in the driveway. Behind me, Patricia called out one last time, "And leave Daniel's car here." I stopped for exactly 1 second. Then I smiled. Not because she was right, because she had absolutely no idea whose name was on the title. And before the sun set that evening, their entire version of reality was about to collapse. People assume betrayal always arrives with obvious warning signs. It doesn't. Sometimes it wears a wedding ring. My name is Claire. I'm 36 years old. I'm an Army Reserve officer. During the week, I manage operations for a logistics company. The military taught me discipline. Civilian life taught me patience. Marriage taught me something else. Silence can be just as dangerous as lies. Daniel and I met almost 9 years ago. He was charming, funny, easy to talk to. He admired my independence, or at least I believed he did. Back then, we built everything on honesty, or so I thought. 3 years before we married, my grandmother passed away. She wasn't wealthy in the billionaire sense. She was simply careful. Every dollar she earned mattered. She believed in paying cash whenever possible, never buying what you couldn't afford, never depending on someone else's generosity. When she died, she left me the one thing she treasured most, her house, a beautiful 4-bedroom home she had owned for nearly 40 years. No mortgage, no debt, just memories. I almost sold it. Instead, I renovated it, carefully, room by room. I paid for every improvement myself. The kitchen, the roof, the landscaping. Every receipt was tucked into neatly labeled folders because Grandma always said, "Good records protect good people." She was right. She also left me enough money to replace my aging sedan. After months of debating whether it was irresponsible, I finally bought a Porsche. It was my dream car. Not because I wanted attention, because it reminded me every single day that my grandmother believed I deserved a good life. I never flaunted it. In fact, I often parked it in the garage because I hated drawing attention. Daniel knew exactly where every dollar had come from. He helped me organize the inheritance paperwork. He sat beside me during meetings with the attorney. He signed nothing because there was nothing for him to sign. Everything belonged to me long before we married. There was never any confusion. At least, not between us. The first time Patricia visited after our wedding, she walked through the front door with a slow smile. Oh my! She looked around the living room, crown molding, hardwood floors, granite counters. She turned toward Daniel. "You've done very well for yourself." I opened my mouth to answer. Daniel spoke first. "We've been fortunate." It sounded harmless, so I let it go. Looking back, that was the first lie. Small, convenient, dangerous. Over the next few years, I noticed strange comments. George would slap Daniel on the back. "Proud of you, son. Buying a place like this before 40 is impressive." Daniel smiled, never corrected him. Patricia would tell friends Daniel always wanted a Porsche. Then she'd point toward mine sitting in the driveway. I told everyone he'd own one someday. Again, Daniel said nothing. At first, I assumed he wanted to avoid awkward conversations. Eventually, I realized something far worse. He enjoyed the admiration. He liked watching people believe he had built a life that actually came from my grandmother's legacy. And every compliment he accepted quietly erased me from the story. I told myself it wasn't worth fighting over until the insults started. And once they started, they never stopped. The comments became routine. Patricia would pat my shoulder and say, "You really hit the jackpot marrying Daniel." At family dinners, she would laugh, "Claire, make sure you don't overspend. It's Daniel paying the bills." Everyone chuckled. I forced a smile. Daniel stayed silent. Every single time. I kept telling myself he would eventually correct them. He never did. Instead, the lie grew bigger with every gathering. By the time Noah was born, Daniel's entire family believed he had bought the house, the Porsche, and provided everything we owned. They praised him, they dismissed me, and they had no idea they were standing on a foundation built entirely on a lie. I should have stopped it then. I didn't. Because I loved my husband, because I wanted peace, because I believed love was stronger than pride. I was wrong, very wrong, and George's retirement cookout would prove exactly how expensive that mistake had become. George's retirement cookout was supposed to be a celebration. After 38 years working for the county utilities department, everyone agreed he deserved one last big family gathering. Daniel volunteered our house without asking me. "They'll all fit here," he said over breakfast one morning. I glanced up for my coffee. "Did you already invite everyone?" He shrugged. "It'll make Dad happy." I wanted to remind him that this wasn't just our house. Legally, it was mine. But I swallowed the words. Not because I was afraid, because I was exhausted. Correcting Daniel had become a full-time job. By Saturday morning, our backyard looked like a small festival. Tables lined the patio, children ran across the lawn, George stood near the grill telling old work stories, music played through the outdoor speakers. I spent hours preparing food. Marinated chicken, homemade potato salad, fresh fruit trays, desserts Noah had helped decorate the night before. Patricia walked in carrying nothing but her purse. She looked around as if she were inspecting a hotel. No greeting, no thank you, just criticism. The table should have been arranged differently. She moved one herself. And honestly, Claire, those flowers don't match the tablecloths. I smiled politely. "I'll keep that in mind." She frowned. I wasn't asking. Daniel heard every word. He simply laughed. "Mom likes everything perfect." Perfect. That word echoed in my head. Apparently, perfect meant everyone adjusting to Patricia, never the other way around. As more guests arrived, I noticed something strange. Several people congratulated Daniel. Again, "Beautiful property. You've really made it in life. Your investments must be paying off." Daniel smiled proudly. "Thanks." That was it. No correction, no acknowledgement that every compliment belonged somewhere else. One of George's old co-workers looked at me. "You married well." I laughed awkwardly, I suppose. Inside, something twisted, not because I wanted praise, but because I was becoming invisible inside my own life. Around noon, Noah came running toward me carrying a soccer ball. "Mom, can we play?" I knelt beside him. "Give me 10 minutes, buddy." Patricia interrupted. "Noah!" He looked up. "Go ask your father. He works all week. He deserves to relax." Then she looked directly at me. "Your mother has plenty of free time." I blinked. Free time? I'd worked a military training weekend just 6 days earlier. I'd spent all week managing warehouse operations. I cooked nearly every dish sitting on those tables. Yet somehow, I was lazy. George chuckled nervously. "Patricia," she waved him off, "I'm just telling the truth." Noah quietly took his soccer ball and walked away. That hurt more than the insult. Children notice everything. Later that afternoon, I walked into the kitchen to refill the lemonade. I froze just outside the doorway. Patricia and two of Daniel's cousins were talking. They hadn't seen me. Patricia laughed. I still don't understand what Daniel sees in her. One cousin asked quietly, "Isn't Claire in the army?" "The reserve," Patricia scoffed. "That's basically a hobby." The other cousin laughed, "And she drives that Porsche everywhere." Patricia rolled her eyes. "Well, if my son bought me a sports car, I'd drive it too." The room erupted with laughter. My fingers tightened around the picture. Every single sentence was built on a lie Daniel could have corrected years ago. Instead, he had fed it. That evening, after everyone left, I finally confronted him. We stood in the kitchen surrounded by dirty dishes. I kept my voice calm. "They think you bought the house." He looked confused. "So?" "So?" I stared at him. "They think I bought my car. They think I'm unemployed. They think I'm living off you." He sighed dramatically. "Claire, why does this matter?" "Because it's not true. They're my parents. What do you want me to do? Embarrass them?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I want you to tell them the truth." He leaned against the counter. "It would just create unnecessary drama." "No," I answered quietly. "The lie created the drama. The truth just exposes it." He rubbed his forehead. "Can we not do this tonight?" I looked at him for several seconds. Then I nodded. "Fine." But something inside me changed. For the first time, I stopped believing this problem would fix itself. The weeks passed. Nothing improved. Instead, Patricia became bolder. She started showing up without calling. Sometimes she walked straight into the house using the emergency key Daniel had secretly given her. One Tuesday afternoon, I came home from work early. Patricia was sitting in my living room drinking coffee. She smiled casually. "Oh, good, you're home." I looked at Daniel. "When exactly did your mother get a key?" He hesitated. "A few months ago." "A few months? You didn't think that was something we should discuss?" Patricia interrupted. "Don't be dramatic. It's Daniel's house. I shouldn't need permission." My jaw tightened. I walked upstairs before I said something I'd regret. That night, I searched every drawer until I found the folder containing the original property deed. I held the document in my hands for several minutes. Claire Elizabeth Morgan, sole owner, acquired 3 years before marriage. Clear, simple, undeniable. I almost marched downstairs and threw it on the kitchen table. Instead, I quietly placed it back inside the folder. Grandma always said, "Never waste evidence on someone who has already chosen not to believe you." At the time, I thought she was talking about business. Now, I realized she had been talking about people. I had no idea how soon those papers would become the most important documents in my life. And when they finally came out, someone else's entire world was going to fall apart. For the next month, I tried something different. I stopped arguing. I stopped correcting Patricia. I stopped asking Daniel to tell the truth. At first, no one noticed. Then they mistook my silence for surrender. Patricia became even more comfortable crossing boundaries. She rearranged furniture in my living room because she thought it looked better. She criticized the meals I cooked. She complained about how I was raising Noah. "You let him make too many choices," she said one afternoon. "Children need to learn who's in charge." I smiled politely. "Thank you for your opinion." She frowned. I wasn't offering an opinion, I was giving advice. I simply walked away. She hated that more than any argument. People like Patricia fed on reactions. When they didn't get one, they looked for bigger ways to provoke you, and she found one. 2 weeks later, Daniel told me his parents were struggling financially. His father's retirement check hadn't started yet. There were medical bills, some repairs on their home. "They're stressed," Daniel said. I know. I feel bad for them. So do I. He hesitated. I've been helping them a little. I looked up. With what? You know, just groceries, a few bills. I nodded. Helping family wasn't unusual. We'd done it before. As long as we're both aware of it. He smiled. Of course. Looking back, that was another lie. The retirement cookout arrived on a warm Saturday afternoon. By noon, almost 50 people filled the backyard. George looked happier than I'd seen him in years. I genuinely wanted him to enjoy the day. None of this was his fault. He'd always been polite to me, sometimes quiet, sometimes unwilling to challenge Patricia, but never intentionally cruel. I focused on serving food, refilling drinks, keeping Noah entertained. I told myself, just get through today. Smile, be gracious, go to bed. Tomorrow would be peaceful again. I couldn't have been more wrong. It started with something small. One of George's friends admired the Porsche parked near the driveway. He laughed. Daniel, you finally bought the sports car you always talked about. Several people turned toward us. Daniel smiled. Again, that same familiar smile, the one that accepted praise built on my silence. Before I could say anything, Patricia proudly announced, My son has always known how to provide. She pointed toward me. Some women are lucky enough to marry ambitious men. Laughter spread across the patio. Someone clapped Daniel on the shoulder. Another guest said, You've spoiled your wife. I looked directly at Daniel. Please, just this once, tell them. He looked away. About an hour later, Noah accidentally spilled a cup of lemonade near one of the tables. He immediately grabbed napkins. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Before I could reach him, Patricia snapped. For heaven's sake! She pulled Noah backward by the arm. If your mother spent less time showing off and more time teaching manners, this wouldn't happen. Every conversation stopped. Noah's eyes filled with tears. I stepped forward immediately. Please don't grab him. Patricia ignored me. She looked at the crowd instead. This is exactly what happens when children are raised without discipline. That was enough. I picked Noah up. We're leaving. Patricia laughed. Oh, don't be dramatic. I'm saving everyone the trouble. I turned toward the driveway. Then Patricia delivered the sentence that changed everything. Take your child and get out of my son's house. Silence. Complete silence. Every face turned toward Daniel. Everyone waited. So did I. He could end this. One sentence, one truth. Instead, he stared at the ground. His silence became his answer. I walked to the driveway carrying Noah. Patricia shouted after me, and leave Daniel's Porsche. A few people laughed. Others looked uncomfortable. I pressed the unlock button. The headlights flashed. The Porsche chirped. I opened the driver's door. Noah climbed inside. I looked back only once. Daniel was finally watching me. There was guilt on his face, but guilt wasn't courage. He still said nothing. I drove away. Noah fell asleep before we reached my sister Emma's house. She opened the front door the moment she saw me. One look at my face told her everything. She hugged me without asking a single question. After Noah was asleep in the guest room, I finally told her the whole story. Everything. The lies, the disrespect, the key, the years of silence. Emma listened quietly. When I finished, she asked only one question. Claire, she said, who actually owns the house? I do. The car? I do. The inheritance? Mine. She nodded slowly. Then why have you been acting like the one who needs permission? That question hit harder than Patricia's insults ever had, because I didn't have an answer. The next Monday, I took a personal day from work, not to cry, not to argue, to prepare. I scheduled a meeting with the attorney who had handled my grandmother's estate years earlier. She remembered me immediately. After reviewing every document, she leaned back in her chair. "Claire," she said, "everything is very straightforward. The house is your separate property. The Porsche is your separate property. The inheritance records are complete. There isn't any legal confusion." I exhaled slowly. Good. Then I asked the question that had been haunting me. What should I do next? She looked directly into my eyes. "First," she said, "protect yourself. Second, find out exactly what's been happening with your finances." "My finances?" She nodded. "You'd be surprised how often dishonesty in one area hides dishonesty somewhere else." That sentence chilled me, because suddenly I wasn't thinking about the house anymore. I was thinking about every bank account Daniel had ever managed. And deep down, I had the terrifying feeling that the lies were much bigger than I realized. Daniel's betrayal wasn't just that he let his family disrespect me, it was that he had been hiding the truth for years. The morning after leaving with Noah, I visited our bank and requested 3 years of joint account statements. At first, everything looked normal until I noticed a recurring $2,000 transfer every month. After checking all the records, I discovered Daniel had secretly transferred $72,000 from our joint savings to his parents without my knowledge. I took the documents straight to my attorney. She advised me not to confront Daniel, but to let the evidence speak for itself. Together, we organized every financial record, inheritance document, property deed, and vehicle title. That afternoon, I returned to my house, packed a few more things for Noah, changed every lock, updated the security codes, and removed Patricia's emergency access. When Daniel arrived home, he couldn't get inside. He insisted it was his house until I calmly reminded him that legally it had never been his. Soon afterward, my attorney sent Daniel copies of the property deed, Porsche title, and inheritance records. He immediately requested mediation. At the meeting, my attorney presented the documents one by one. The house had belonged to me years before our marriage. The Porsche had been purchased with my inheritance. Daniel admitted he had lied to his family the entire time, allowing them to believe everything was his. Then came the bank statements. 36 monthly transfers totaling $72,000 proved he had secretly used our joint savings to support his parents. George and Patricia were stunned. They had believed the money came from Daniel's personal income. Realizing the truth, Patricia apologized sincerely for how she had treated me. Daniel accepted full responsibility without making excuses. He agreed to repay every dollar, keep our finances separate, attend counseling, and respect that the house and car belonged solely to me. The following months were quiet. Daniel faithfully repaid the money, attended therapy, and focused on becoming a better father. Patricia also changed. She respected my boundaries, apologized again without excuses, and slowly rebuilt trust. Over time, Daniel proved his remorse through consistent actions rather than promises. We continued counseling while remaining separated, rebuilding trust one step at a time. A year later, our family wasn't perfect, but it was honest. Daniel no longer hid behind lies, Patricia respected my home and boundaries, and Noah grew up seeing that real love is built on truth, accountability, and respect, not manipulation or silence.